Hello, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. We will just wait a few minutes for everybody to trickle in here. So we should see a slide, I hope. Webinar slide. Excellent. So welcome, everybody. I think we'll just give it maybe another minute before we get started. Let everybody stream in. Okay, well, I would like to welcome you all to the webinar today. My name is Kara Vinson and I'm the knowledge translator here at CIPSRT. Welcome to today's applicant webinar, Catalyst Grant, Crisis Suicide Line and App-Based Support Models for PTSI in Public Safety Personnel. We're so happy that you were able to join us today. Before we get started, I just have some very quick housekeeping items to go through. So you may have already noticed this, but by default, all of our attendees are in listen-only mode, as well as having cameras shut off. That's just to limit background noise. Today's session is being recorded, and you will automatically be sent recording tomorrow. So that can be really helpful in case you miss anything. The go-to webinar launch window to access the webinar is sometimes blocked by certain organizations. So if you are having trouble hearing or seeing us right now, you might have to join us by phone, and you should be able to see in the graphic where you can select that option. Likewise, we have set aside some time for audience questions at the end of the session. You can send us your questions through the question box in the GoToWebinar panel. Again, you should be able to see that in the graphic where that's located. Should you require French translation in real time, please access Wordly, our simultaneous French captioning service, using the following link, and I'm also going to post that in the chat. In 1 second here, do that right now. Okay. Be sure to keep both of your windows open, though one for the webinar and one for Wordly. If you select French, Canadian French, at the top of the Wordly window, all of the webinar dialogue should be translated into French captions, which will be displayed in Wordly in real time. Quick disclaimer, and this is just our routine disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed in this webinar belong solely to the speakers and are not necessarily endorsed by the University of Regina, CIPSRT or its sponsors, or the speakers' respective employers or organizations. And finally, I would like to acknowledge the land on which this webinar is being hosted. The University of Regina is situated on Treaty 4 lands with a presence in Treaty 6. These are the territories of the Nihayawak, Anasinapak, Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. This land acknowledgement is part of an ongoing conversation as we work toward reconciliation. And okay, that is enough from me. I'm so pleased to turn it over to our wonderful presenters today. I'd like to introduce Eric Marcotte. He's the Associate Director, Institute of Neurosciences, Mental Health and Addiction at the Canadian Institutes of Health Research. And Jenny Crabb, Advisor of Program Design and Delivery at CIHR as well. So, okay, let's turn it over to Eric.
All right, well, merci, bonjour, bienvenue à tous. Welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today with my CIHR colleagues. Are you, Kara, are you going to be queuing up the slides? I just have a blank screen right now.
Yes, I apologize. I am.
No worries, while that's coming up. So on behalf of CIHR, we would also like to pay our respects to all First Nations, Inuit and Métis people from across Canada, from coast to coast to coast, for their past and ongoing contributions to our society. I also gratefully acknowledge that I'm personally located on Treaty 13A lands. This land is traditional territory of many First Nations, including the Mississaugas, the Neutral, the Huron-Wendat, the Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee. So, and you can see from the slides, I'm joined here with some of my CIHR colleagues, especially Jenny Crabb, who's an advisor in our program delivery group. You'll be hearing from shortly, with several other members who will introduce themselves when the time comes. I am the Associate Scientific Director for the Institute of Neurosciences, Mental Health and Addiction, which is the lead institute at CIHR on the PTSI and PSP file. So welcome today. We're going to talk a little bit about a new Catalyst grant program that we have, which is for crisis and app-based support for public safety personnel. So I think with that, we can move to the next slide, if you don't mind, Kara, moving them for me. Great, thanks. So just a bit of background for you. Many of you already know a bit of the history, but for those of you who don't, it's helpful to situate, I think, the partnership between CIHR and CIPSRT. It comes out of budget 2018, when 20 million was set aside by Public Safety Canada for a new national research consortium that brought actually CIHR and CIPSRT together for the first time to help address mental wellness and public safety personnel. So this National Research Consortium builds the evidence base related to post-traumatic stress injuries and PSPs under the guidance of a public safety steering committee. And from our end at CIHR, we've been looking to develop funding opportunities to help support the research community in working with PSPs to address the most urgent mental health needs and issues with a strong focus on knowledge mobilization, which is where actually our partnership with CIPSRT comes in. So we can, next slide, please. So CIPSRT, as you know, Housing University of Regina, is actually our key partner for all of this. They do a great work, including organizing this webinar. And I'll say parenthetically, I happen to know we have much higher uptake in number of participants today than when CIHR hosts its own webinars. So I think that's actually a good sign of CIPSRT's close connection to the community and its key role for knowledge mobilization. So thank them again for helping organize this today and bring all of us here. Of course, CIHR also works, with Public Safety Canada to try to kind of help coordinate research activities going forward. And our institute is particularly pleased on behalf of CIHR to be working with both the PSSC, CIPSRT, and the various groups that are key informants and stakeholders for everything that we do. So thanks again for the opportunity to be here and to share what we're working on with all of you. Next slide, please. This is a bit of a timeline. I won't go through all of it, but just sort of the sequence of the funding opportunities that we've launched under that budget 2018 funding commitment. So there was a Catalyst grant early in 2018, or technically late in 2018, a team grant in 2019, a series of knowledge mobilization activities, and then late 2021, we launched the first funding call for what we call the third funding program, which has a number of components. The first was funding research and coordination hubs. You'll be hearing more about these in a moment in two areas. Followed by a series of open calls for the broader research community to work collaboratively with those hubs. And I'll explain how all that works in a moment. But this brings us to the end of the timeline, which is a second open call in that third funding program. I know the nomenclature is a little hard to keep track of sometimes. And that's what we're here to talk about today. An important thing to emphasize, this is actually the third and final call of that third funding program. So this does bring us to the end of our budget envelope. So it is the last dedicated funding opportunity that we'll have off those budget 2018 funds. Of course, we're always hoping and looking to develop further collaborations, but for this point in time, this is what we know we have. And so this is, under this dedicated program, the last tranche of funding that's coming your way. So next slide, please. This is just kind of a schematic overview of what this third funding program looks like. It has two streams, so the two colors, the sort of beigey brown, depending on how your screen resolution and color palette looks, and the green. We have the Respond Hub, which is based at CAMH, which looks at suicide prevention through call-in lines and so forth. And we'll hear more about that as we go through. And the Peer On Call Hub based at McMaster, which is an app-based method for peer-to-peer support. And so what you see here is the three funding calls. The first to fund the research and coordination hubs, which help develop these technologies and approaches and do their own activities, but are also a resource to work with the broader community, which we're trying to fund through these two sequential open calls for new innovative questions coming from the community to work collaboratively with the hubs. The point is that, and the reason we do these all combined together, is that collectively what we're trying to do is just, again, to continue to build the evidence base around support models for PSP, and especially using these two types of mechanisms of crisis lines and app-based service approaches. So next slide, please. This is a busy slide, but it's actually probably the most important one for you, I think, at this point. It just kind of summarizes what's in the funding opportunity. And there'll be a link at the end for the direct funding opportunity. So all of this is just repeated what's in there. But we're just trying to put it in a more digestible sort of format. Probably good to focus on what it's about. So as you can see here that, again, to address innovative research questions related to the efficacy, effectiveness, feasibility, development or evaluation of best practices, guidance documents, and uptake of both these services by PSP. We have a little under $1 million left in the budget. We've divided it sort of roughly equally. That's enough for 9 grants of 100,000 each. We've just sort of split it up, 500,000, 400,000 for now, but that's just a rough split, depending on number of grants that come in and the uptake and success of peer review. It might change a little bit for the relative mix, but the idea is that there's roughly an equal amount of money available for projects to work with both the Respond Hub and the Peer On Call. Although all the numbers here are important, I think the thing I really want to draw your attention to is the timeline. Little box. So we launched this a few months ago. This webinar is a critical and key piece of us trying to get the word out to the community because there's some very important deadlines coming up. The first is in August, a specific date you'll find in the funding opportunity, along with the date in November. And this is an important thing to understand about our system. You have to register by the August deadline date or you will not be able to apply. So for groups who are not sure if they're going to come in or if they're going to get everything ready in time, please, please, please still put in a registration, because if you don't, you're basically cut out. The burden for the registration is very minor. It's basically just the name of the principal investigator, title, and a very brief description and synopsis of your project. That's it. So it's just a marker. But it's a critical one for us because we use this information to start building up our plans for peer review. So we need to know how large of a panel we're going to need. We need to know what kind of expertise we're likely going to need for the applications. So we can get started working on that. So when we get to full applications in November, we can sort of hit the ground running. You're not obligated by putting in a registration, but you are required to put one in if you wish to submit a full application. So please keep that in mind. Hopefully November gives you enough time. I know, September is a horrible month for academics getting back into the lab and into classwork and so forth. So hopefully this gives you enough time to meet the deadlines. Given our usual processes, peer review will meet early in 2024. They'll have a chance to review them, sort of our Christmas gift to peer reviewers to review applications, and then we'll have a meeting sometime early in the new year with a decision by March and a funding start date of March to go along with it. So please, again, to keep close attention to the timelines to make sure you don't miss anything. If at any point you're having any challenges or issues, technical or others, why you can't submit, please do get in touch with CIHR through our contact center to request an extension, for example. I can't guarantee we can offer one, but if you don't ask, you're not going to get one, right? So after the fact doesn't work, you have to do it proactively. So next slide, please. So just to kind of go through the funding opportunity, again, this is all taken directly from the funding opportunity. I'm not going to read it all out, but it is good to kind of focus on, what is the point of why we're doing this. So you see, we always make kind of not always, but at least in this program, we make an overarching statement of what it is that we're trying to do, which you see described here. We've seen this sort of on all these slides, what we're trying to do for public safety personnel and providing that evidence base. for what works. Specifically, though, there's really 3 key points for this one. We want to help evaluate the merit, validity, and appropriateness of the 2 support systems that we targeted through this program. We want to have the opportunity to assess potential impacts on public safety personnel using innovative research approaches using these mechanisms with the core technologies that are in place with the research and coordination hubs that we've funded. So that's a key point, again, to be able to use those hubs and to help develop the technology. And finally, we always have a mind for sustainability. I mean, it's something we've heard very clearly from various public safety groups. It's not enough to just do these as one-offs and move on. We're really looking to build up sustainable support systems, but the way that we can do that right now is just to create the best possible evidence base. So to convince others to continue to fund this area, and then we can come back with more opportunities for people and more mechanisms, hopefully, to have that prove to be continued effective. But along the way, have to build up the research, best practices, evidence summaries, guidance documents, and so on. And so we're hoping to see some of that come out of this research program. Next slide, please. I won't go into these next 2 slides in details. Again, this is taken on the funding opportunity. We realized last time we were probably a little too vague in the first funding opportunity, so we've tried to be a little more specific by providing some examples of possible research questions. And the challenge with this is we're not trying to be prescriptive. We don't want to tell people what we think you should be doing. We just want to give some examples of what we think could be valuable. So you see we've just listed a bunch here for the Respond Hub. As always, though, I would encourage, although I'm not going to require, and I'm mindful of the resource commitments at the Respond Hub to respond to researcher requests, but it's a good idea to reach out to the Respond Hub directly. And I see Chantal is nodding her head in approval, just to make sure that what you're proposing to do will work technically as well as effectively with how the Respond Hub operates. The same will be true for the peer-on-peer app. Again, I don't want to put pressure on the hubs to actually respond to 1 million queries, but I do think it's important that a dialogue happens. That's part of the reason why representatives from both the Respond Hub and the peer-on call are here today to help answer any specific questions you may have. Although I realize you may want to take them offline, so I just want to sort of point that out as well. Anyway, I won't go through the question. We'll just move to the next slide. And same here for the peer-on call. Again, just a different. I think again we're trying to get across to some different types of questions you might want to address on an app versus a crisis line. And so again, we're just trying to give some suggestions for that. This is always meant to be just I can't say the word. Wish to illustrate. Illustrative, there we go, there's the word I was looking for. Looking to illustrate possibilities of what it is that you could do. Again, it's never meant to be an exhaustive list, so please just take these as a starting point as you consider the possible ways, the kind of questions you'd like to ask in collaboration and in coordination with those hubs. So next slide, please. Oh, good, since I'm getting tongue-tied anyway, this will be my time to turn it over to my colleague from Program Design and Delivery. I should have mentioned, by the way, we will be providing these slides in French and English, and when we get to the question periods, please feel free to pose your question in French or English or the official language of your choice, and we'll do our best to respond, between the group of us. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jenny. I think you'll be speaking on behalf of Program Design and Delivery. Jenny, over to you.
Thanks, Eric. So hi, everyone. As previously mentioned, I'm Jenny. I'm an advisor with CIHR with the Program Design and Delivery team. I'm going to be going over some of the more technical information regarding eligibility and the how to apply. Looks like a lot of information, but again, everything we're going over today can be found like on the CIHR website as well as the funding opportunity. Next slide. So for the eligibility criteria, for an application to be eligible, all the requirements stated below must be met. So the NPA must be an independent researcher or a knowledge user affiliated with a Canadian post-secondary institution or its affiliated institutions. So this can include hospitals, research institutes, and other nonprofit organizations with a mandate for health research and or knowledge translation. The nominated principal applicant must have their substantive role in Canada for the duration of the requested grant term. The institution paid must be authorized to administer CIHR funds before funds can be released. And the NPA must have successfully completed one of the SGBA, so sex and gender-based analysis training modules, which is available online through the CIHR Institute of Gender and Health, and submit a certificate of completion. Next slide. So the nominated principal applicant and principal applicants must provide a CIHR biosketch. Co-applicants and knowledge users are not required to submit a CV, but it is highly encouraged. A CIHR biosketch CV or an applicant profile is also acceptable. So the applicant profile is a 3-page PDF CV that can be uploaded in the attachment subtask. Collaborators are not required to submit a full CV. Next slide. So the research proposal should clearly outline each of the elements presented in the evaluation criteria. Research proposals written in French will be allowed to submit additional pages in support of evidence demonstrating that French documents do require approximately 20% more space than similar English documents. So to make sure that the equivalent space is given to research proposals, what we do is we allow 5 pages for the research proposal in English and 6 pages for French ones. It's important that we note that any research proposal submitted in English and any pages that go over the 5-page limit will be removed with no notification to the NPA. So it's really important to kind of respect those guidelines that we do set out. Reference charts, tables, figures, photographs, and anything like that can be uploaded under the attachment research proposal appendix. Next slide, please. So for budgets, we ask that you provide a detailed budget justification in relation to planned activities and clearly justify all the budget items, including cash and cash equivalent contributions, if applicable. So the budget must include all of the funds to attend the annual workshop with a maximum of $5,000 per year per grant. That's also in the conditions of funding. The applicants must also include the costs and travel expenses of participants at these workshops within their budget to a maximum of $5,000 per year. For the release of time allowance requests, you must include a letter. You would upload that under the other supporting documents section from the recipient's organization certifying that the individual for whom the release time allowed is requested. Again, all of this information is in the funding opportunity, so if you need any more details, you can search it from there as well. Next slide. So the attachments that you'll upload as other would be a certificate of completion for the SGBA training modules. That's mandatory. So you would go ahead and download the PDF certificate and upload the PDF or a print screen image right there. This document is mandatory for the NPA, and you can find more information in the eligibility section of the FO. The applicant partner and COI document, which is optional, would describe the role of all the applicant partners and how and if they will be contributing to the research and any research related activities. A list of publications and or other research outputs, also another optional document that you may upload, letters of collaboration, and it's just important to note that the letters of support from the research and coordination hubs for public safety are not required. Next slide. So to apply for one of the funding pools, you would select one of them under the Skin Bone Health, under the Respond Hub for Research and Suicide Prevention for Public Safety Personnel, or you would select the Peer On Call Hub for the app-based peer-to-peer support. That will be outlined in the criteria when you are applying. So you would just select one of the two. Next slide. So just a few words about the formatting guidelines. CIHR does have some rules and regulations that we do follow. It's clearly outlined on our website, and there's a list of examples and directions to follow. We're pretty strict about the formatting, so if you do go over or don't respect the formatting when submitting your application, if it is then reformatted afterwards and the pages do go over, unfortunately we don't take those pages into consideration, and reviewers are only asked to review what is in front of them. So pages will be removed if reformatted and no longer fit within the allotted page allowance. So when preparing your application, we expect that you'll adhere to all the applicable instructions and requirements, and that includes font sizes, spacing, page limits, etc. Next slide. We do have some resources and reference materials, and you can ask for a copy of this slide, and the links are provided right here. These are your core resources for submitting an application for this funding opportunity, and it's a wealth of knowledge. I highly encourage everybody to take a look. Next slide, please. So the link below here on ResearchNet is where you would apply for this funding opportunity. We encourage everybody to share this funding opportunity with your networks and those that you believe would be interested. You can scan the barcode, and we have the dates below of what will be happening in the upcoming timeframe. Next slide, please. If you do have any questions about the eligibility or application process, you can contact our contact center at the support email in this slide or at the telephone number between Monday and Friday. And next slide, please. We have some social media links that you can also gain more information and find out more about CIHR and the funding opportunities that we have, as well as the eligibility and the have to apply section. So I think that's it for me. If there's any questions, I'm sure everybody on the panel here would be happy to answer.
Great. I think we can maybe, Kara, do you want to go back just to remind people again how they can enter their questions?
Sorry, yes. So you should see in your GoToWebinar panel chat box, or I'm sorry, a question box. And that is where you can type your question. Let me see if I can bring up my graphic again. Oops, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, it's different set of slides. Okay, here we go. Yes, here we go. So this is what you should be able to see in your GoToWebinar panel. If for some reason you find you don't have this full panel in your interface, all you need to do is click this little orange arrow here, and then that should expand the menu for you. So yes, please ask your questions. Oh, looks like we have some. Okay.
I see we have our first question. So I think I'll try to kind of coordinate and just share the questions and sort of pick on panel members to ask to take a response. The first question was, can applications be made to both the peer and respond hub areas? Yes, that's a very good question. The answer is yes. Applicants can apply to both streams of funding. They are separate applications, of course, and they will be reviewed and considered separately each on their own merits. But applicants can indeed respond to each of the two streams. Christine, Jenny, was there anything you wanted to add or correct me on? Actually, I should always give you that option too, in case I misspeak. I take it you agree?
Yeah, sorry, there's nothing. I couldn't find my unmute button there. No, that's correct. They can apply within, and then when you're applying for it, you just select which hub it is.
Yeah, so it's not like, I know there are sometimes competitions where applicants are limited to only to apply once. This is not one of them. You can apply more than once, and you just have to pick which pool you're applying to. All right, so question number 2, who do I contact for the reference page slide? Good question. So I guess that the point is really who to contact for the slides. Good question, actually. I don't know if we ever discussed that. Jenny?
Kristen had mentioned that she had contacted our support center, our contact center, and you can go through, do we still have the slide up? I could post it in the chat. It's just an email that you can send to our contact center asking them for these slides, and they'll be able to provide them. Right there. Yes, thank you.
It's the standard CIHR contact center mailbox. It's actually the best one to use because everything gets routed, tracked, and so that way you don't have to worry about, did somebody not get the email, did it get lost? You'll get a response. So you can request the slides that way, and they'll be provided. So don't be shy. If you have any questions. We also have representatives from the Peer on Call and Respond Hub, with us here today. Although I also appreciate you might want to do that privately rather than publicly, so that's perfectly fine as well. But they are here as a resource if you have any perhaps overarching or simple questions. Also, and again, I see a question came in, but I just want to say, we're also available, at other times as well. So don't hesitate to reach out. It's usually great to go through the contact center, but you can also reach out to me as well if you have any questions about the general program, for example. I'm happy to take any questions. So I see we have a third question. Who may I contact to share my previous research with, which scopes the benefit of app-based and ecological momentary assessment modalities in first responders with PTSD? That's an interesting question. Well, I would certainly encourage reaching out to the Peer on Call app group. It sounds to me like that might be something to spur a discussion about possible collaboration, which might be then possible through this funding opportunity. So I would think that would be the first point of contact. So if you go to the Peer on Call website, you'll see various individuals, but maybe I should let Jordan actually weigh in on this one. If there's a specific process you'd recommend, Jordan, for your team.
Yeah, absolutely. I can send our email in the chat to everyone. That might be a good point, or a good starting point, at least, to reach out and solicit some more information from the Peer on Call end of things. I'm not sure if Sandra is here as well, but if not, then I guess that's my kind of long and short answer.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. I realized as well, and I said the process here. So the participants in the webinar see different screens than we do as panelists. So we have sort of different things that we're looking at. So I don't know if Jordan types in his email address, it's going to just come to us, not to everyone. So maybe Kara, I think you might be the one who kind of the one ring to rule them all here, to use a Tolkien reference. You might be able to see everything and then be able to pop it in for all the participants to see, not just the panelists. So anyway,
yes.
maybe just...
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so Jordan, if you could send that information to Kara, then she can hopefully pop it in the box so all the panelists, all the participants can see it. You have to bear with us. We what these meetings are like. We're always using a different technology between Zoom, Teams, GoToMeeting, and a number of other ones that's sometimes hard to get used to. And even like at CIHR, we use Teams, but there's different versions of it. There's Teams Live. There's different types of ones, and sometimes you're in more of a broadcast mode. So every one of these webinars is a little different. So please bear with us as we work out technical details for sharing the information with everyone. And we're happy to stay on the line. I know it can be sometimes, because of the technical side of it, hard to figure out exactly how to make sure you get your question in. So we're happy to hang around here as we figure this all out together. There we go. I see Jordan's emails come in. Oh, and I see Sandra's joined us as well. Yes, there you go. Thank you, Sandra. So that's actually now been shared with the organizers and panelists, and I'm going to guess Kara is making sure that it can be shared with all the participants as well. So I see Sandra is with us, and she also provided the link, which I can actually, maybe I can just read out for everyone who's listening. So for the email, it's on-call, one word, ONCALL at mcmaster.ca. And for the website, it's basically the same thing, www.oncallapp.ca. So one word, oncallapp.ca. So from there, you'll be able to find the contacts. And I see, there we go, it's actually gone out. Thank you, Kara, to all the participants.
Other question incoming.
No, there we go. Is another question. Is there any additional way to connect with other participants for collaboration and further discussion? Oh, well, that's an interesting question. I think we should actually probably get the Respond Hub contact information as well. So maybe Chantal or Giselle, if you wouldn't mind passing that along through the chat so Kara can put that in. So, people can have an opportunity to reach out to you directly. It is an interesting point. This webinar is unfortunately a kind of unidirectional way to get information out. But I think probably at this point in time, given where we are in the funding opportunity cycle, it's best that people reach out directly to Respond Hub and Peer On Call to talk directly with them about the possible applications. We're more CIHR, I mean, we're more for the technical side about how you would be applying. But I think for questions about how best to collaborate, it's just really best to reach out directly to the two groups themselves. I can see there's another question now that's come in. Can you share how the applications will be appraised? Is this for innovation or more for fitting in with what's already happening at the hubs? That's a very good question. I think the general way that I can start to answer this, and I'll ask my colleagues to weigh in more about the peer review process, is that it's really more about how the overarching goals and objectives that you see in the funding opportunity. So we are trying to drive innovative questions. So in a certain sense, maybe this isn't the right way to put it, but we're trying to drive questions beyond what the hubs themselves might have thought of. I can just maybe put it simply. So if there's other opportunities, or maybe the hubs don't have the resources for, another way to look at it. But it's not so much a question of what you can do to help the hubs as it is to more how you can advance the field. I think that's kind of the general lens that we're taking, and how can you use the research that's underway at the hubs to help you do that. I think you'll find that's kind of the lens that peer review takes as well. But there is explicit evaluation criteria in the funding opportunity. And again, this is, as my boss likes to say, every business is a people business. So as much as we can write down rules and processes, at the end of the day, this is all about human interaction. And so peer review panel members are human beings like the rest of us. They will interpret what we wrote, just like you will interpret what we wrote in the funding opportunity. And so I encourage you to kind of weigh how the evaluation criteria is written, for example. So if we put a lot more emphasis on some things than others, that's probably a good tip-off that it's likely to be important, and that the reviewers will also weigh it similarly to how we've structured it in our funding opportunities. So it's kind of a general editorial comment, but perhaps it'd be better if I turn it over to Christine and Jenny if you have any specific comments about on the evaluation process.
Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. In terms of the review process, we recruit members based on their expertise with each application, and we are asking them to review the applications based on the objectives of the funding opportunity. So your job would be to make sure that you address each criteria of the actual funding opportunity, and also make sure that everything is well justified in terms of budget and the composition of the team. Everything that is in the funding opportunity is basically what the reviewers will be looking for. There's a lot more information on our website, obviously, about our peer review process, like the very nitty-gritty process. But if you need more information, you can definitely reach out to our support team, and we will be happy to answer any specific questions on the peer review process.
Yeah, thanks for saying it. It's a very good point, and I actually do encourage people to reach out to CIHR if you have any questions. I think one of the challenges, especially for people who aren't used to applying to CIHR, is that our process is maybe a little different and our mechanisms a little bit different. So it's a good idea not to just assume anything, and a good idea to explicitly ask any questions that you may have, so that you can best craft your application to meet the likely expectations from the panel. I see a note as well that Sandra just reminded me that she agrees that there are certainly ways to advance innovation with using the hubs as a springboard. I think that's another good way to look at it, that the hubs are in essence a resource for you as well to sort of springboard off of to try to have a broader impact, beyond the specific program or the specific resource, technically that's available. It's a way for sometimes for you to use that as a starting point or springboard. So I think that's a good analogy. Thanks, Andrew, for populating it in the chat for me. I see there's been some additional stuff going into the chat, which is just kind of the contact details again for the CIHR. And I think, yes, Chantal's information there as well for Respond Hub. So thank you, Chantal. I have to say, these are actually very good questions. I mean, sometimes we have very, very quiet webinars. These are actually kind of the questions that are, I think, thoughtful, and you want to make sure that you get them answered to your satisfaction. So if we haven't done that today as well, again, please don't hesitate to follow up, in writing to the contact center, so it can be routed and you can get a more detailed response. I think I speak for all of us here, including CIPSRT and the two hubs, that we're all trying to be as open and as transparent as possible. So please don't hesitate to ask us questions, because I think that goes a long way to making sure that you can put in the best quality application, because that's what we all want. We want to be able to review the highest quality applications to fund the highest quality research with the highest potential for impact. And the highest, when I say impact, I mean impact on people's lives. Yeah, there's of course research impact as well, and there's understanding for the field, but this is all very much an applied program where we definitely want to make sure we do everything we can to help public safety personnel with the challenges that they experience. All right, I don't think I've seen any questions come in. I don't think I've missed anything. Is there anything else, Kara? I want to make sure I'm not missing something here. I'm just scrolling up and down.
No, I don't think so. I guess maybe this is a last call for questions. No. Okay, well, thank you. And I'm glad we have so many means of follow-up if people do have questions after the fact. So thank you for that. So I just want to say a huge thank you to all of our panelists today, everybody who joined us to add their expertise and input today, particularly Dr. Marcotte and Jenny Crabb. Thank you so much. I think we've learned a lot, and it's been very informative, and I hope that many applications are the result. Okay, so thank you to everybody who attended today as well. And I hope you'll consider taking a brief survey that you will see pop up at the end of the webinar. We value your feedback about how we can, oh, Jenny, I am so sorry. We actually have one more brief presentation from Ginny Carpenter, who wants to talk about something important at CIPSRT. Sorry, Ginny.
That's okay, Kara. Thank you, Kara. I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes just talking about a couple of activities that we have, or programs that we have going on at CIPSRT. And one of the ones is we have a network that we have between academics, researchers, and clinicians called the ARC Network. And the goal of this network is to encourage and enable coordination among academics, researchers, and clinicians by maintaining a pan-Canadian network. And this provides a national mechanism to coordinate and facilitate engagement between consortium researchers and PSP collaborators, and by the exchange of information and new ideas. And we encourage anybody who's on the call today who isn't part of the ARC network to go to our website, and you can look it up. They'll be under the ARC network, and to apply for this. It's a great way to connect with other researchers in the public safety personnel research field, so encourage that. And the other thing is if you're interested in sharing your research, this can only be done by members of the ARC network, of which that application is on our website. But if you're interested in having your research shared, we do have a research engagement form also on our website under Share Your Research. And members of the ARC network can share their work, their research work with within the public safety personnel community on a national level by completing and submitting this research engagement form. It's reviewed by CIPSRT, then the research is validated, and the studies are posted on our website and made available to our collaborators, the public, PSP leadership. So it is a way to get your research known to that PSP leadership, PSP community about what you are doing, especially if you're looking for participants or things like that. So we encourage you to take a look at our website under the ARC network. If you aren't a member, please, apply. We'd love to expand our network. And if you want to share your research and get more visibility on the national level, then please fill out one of those forms as well. And if you have any questions, my name is Virginia Carpenter. You can find my information under the admin on their website too, if you have any questions about either of those things. And I don't know if anybody has any questions about those two programs. Okay, well, thanks for listening to me. Back to you, Kara.
Ginny, I'm just popping your email in the chat.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I guess we'll end it there then. Again, thank you, Ginny. Thank you to all our presenters today, and thank you for attending. And I feel like there was one other thing I wanted to say. I don't remember. But yeah, just a reminder that you will receive a video of this presentation automatically by email. So you can refer to it as often as you like. Okay, everybody, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Great, thanks all.